Nagasumi might be the unluckiest guy in anime history. One day on a trip to his grandmother's beach house, he gets a cramp while swimming and finds himself without any help. Just in time, he's saved by a dark-skinned mermaid. Things take a turn for the worse when he discovers that his rescuer is the daughter of a powerful underworld mafia boss from the ocean. Since mermaids can't reveal themselves to humans without turning into sea foam and dying, Nagasumi finds himself unintentionally responsible for her. That evening, when Nagasumi shares with his family that a mermaid saved him, they're skeptical, except for his grandmother, who slightly believes him due to old local mermaid tales. Suddenly, a very cute girl who looks just like the mermaid who saved him shows up. She introduces herself as Sun and shocks everyone by asking to be Nagasumi's wife. This leads to Nagasumi's father turning him to Brock Lesnar, punching him, mistakenly thinking he got the girl impregnated. His mother is furious, accusing him of disrespecting a girl. The situation escalates when sea gangsters arrive and take them to meet Sun's family, revealing she is the daughter of a sea underworld mafia. Overwhelmed, the family faints. They are then taken to a cliff and pushed into the sea, which is the passage to an underwater world where Sun's family waits. Later, Nagasumi regains consciousness but faints again when he's called son-in-law. A kind-hearted man revives him with CPR, which Nagasumi don't like and thinks it may be a hot chick. Back to the main issue, the sea underworld boss, Sun's father, introduces himself as Gouzaburou, the boss of the Seto clan, with his wife Ren, Sun's mother, by his side. Normally, they wouldn't bring humans here, but the situation is critical enough to make an exception. According to mermaid law, humans who see mermaids must forget their faces, or the mermaids will die, and no parent wants that fate for their child. To resolve this, Nagasumi must become their son-in-law, making him part of the family so seeing each other is normal. However, Gouzaburou is furious about having to marry off his daughter and wishes he could avoid the marriage. He plans to eliminate Nagasumi to save Sun's life but is stopped by his subordinates, wife, and daughter. Sun declares she would rather die than have Nagasumi's dick. Sorry guys, I mean she wants to marry her. Ren, the mother, remains calm and proposes a solution that works for both families. Nagasumi's parents, terrified, leave the responsibility to him. Nagasumi, overwhelmed, tries to escape but realizes there's no escaping a sea underworld family. Sun intervenes and brings him back to shore. Rescued twice in one day, Nagasumi can't leave her behind and carries her away. Sun is incredibly strong and resilient, with the spirit of a true warrior. Despite the risk of being seen by humans, she believes it's more disgraceful not to help. At this moment, Dickhead Dad approaches with a knife. Nagasumi, facing potential death, wakes up just in time and pleads with his father-in-law to trust him with his daughter. Stunned, Gouzaburou is momentarily taken aback. In return for what Sun has done for him, Nagasumi finds the price of marrying her more than fair. However, Sun's father wasn't ready to accept Nagasumi and thought about throwing him into the sea again. Both families went to an underwater palace to talk things over. Sun's mom hoped her daughter would be well cared for, while her dad, feeling defeated, accepted the situation. The next day, Nagasumi's grandma told them about a festival happening that night, suggesting it would be a great chance for him to take his wife out, since they were already married. Nagasumi followed her advice, though his parents were still shaken by their encounter with the underworld family. That night, he was excited to take Sun to the festival. Despite their awkward conversation, they started to grow closer. As they wandered around, Nagasumi noticed that all the vendors were underlings from Sun's family. She reassured him that her family managed the whole area, so there was no need to worry. Still, Nagasumi was nervous, fearing his father-in-law might appear at any moment. Sure enough, Gouzaburou showed up, scaring Nagasumi so much that he didn't dare to greet him. Later, a phone call from Shadow saying, "Your life is in my hands," left Nagasumi trembling. While scooping goldfish, Nagasumi was sabotaged by Sun's father's subordinates. They brought a talking shark for him to scoop, but he narrowly escaped. The splash turned Sun back into a mermaid. With no other choice, Nagasumi removed his shirt to cover her tail and carried her away. Just then, Nagasumi's in-laws walked by and saw him doing something with their daughter's legs. Tell me in comment guys what he is doing over there. The father-in-law was furious, but it was all a misunderstanding. Nagasumi was just trying to dry her legs. This situation brought his parents over, making things even more awkward. Sun, knowing her dad's temper, asked him to apologize, which made the mafia boss even angrier, and he stormed off. Sun still wanted to enjoy their date, so she dragged Nagasumi to keep having fun at the festival. Later, Nagasumi bought Sun a ring, not knowing it looked like an engagement ring to her. Meanwhile, Masa from the gang noticed Nagasumi couldn't dance, so he taught him some moves. Misunderstanding this, Sun thought they were into each other and sadly walked away, dropping the ring. To Nagasumi, it was just a cheap trinket, but to Sun, it was special, and she wanted it back badly. Nagasumi, realizing she was serious about their marriage, decided to find the ring for her. Seeing this, Sun's father was happy, and her mother found the ring and gave it to them, showing that her husband no longer wanted Nagasumi dead. He returned the ring to his wife. It accidentally ended up on Masa's finger. Seeing this, Sun got jealous and accidentally unleashed a powerful wave that sent Nagasumi's soul to heaven to meet his grandfather. Nagasumi's grandfather thankfully sent him back, and his soul re-entered his body. After their outing, Nagasumi was left in a full body cast. The bright side was he earned the love and acceptance of his wife and her family. A few days later, some unfortunate news arrived. Nagasumi's dad was called back to work, forcing the whole family to return home. Even though summer vacation wasn't over, they asked Nagasumi to explain the situation to his wife. The couple then met on a boat heading to a romantic island to say their goodbyes. Nagasumi was hesitant to talk as he saw Sun happy that her dad had approved of their relationship and even set up the island for their enjoyment. During this time, Nagasumi also got to know Sun's friend, Maki, a spirit living in a shell. Later, Masa quietly warned him to be cautious, which made Nagasumi uneasy even though he didn't know what was coming. He soon discovered that Maki wasn't the cute mollusk she appeared to be. Because guys, this bitch was actually an assassin sent by the father-in-law to eliminate him because he couldn't accept his daughter marrying a human. At a crucial moment, Sun called for backup, giving Nagasumi a brief reprieve. This revealed why the father-in-law had picked this secluded island with no escape routes for their vacation. When Nagasumi saw Sun in her swimsuit, his determination returned, and he prepared to confront the small assassin. However, his confidence quickly vanished as Maki's strength overwhelmed him. Seeing the snake bothering Sun, Maki pulled out a revolver and fired. Seizing the moment, he hugged Sun, which enraged Maki, prompting her to attack him. Sun, thinking it was all a game, came over to remind Maki not to get too rough and asked Nagasumi to apply sunscreen on her. Using this distraction, Nagasumi managed to momentarily throw Maki away, but Maki, being exceptional, quickly flew back and hit him on the head. Their silent struggle continued until it finally ended. Realizing his thoughts were inappropriate, Nagasumi let Maki handle the sunscreen application. Still, Maki did not forget her mission to get rid of Nagasumi and kept attempting dangerous moves. Maki wanted to avoid a direct kill as it would upset Sun, so she came up with various tricks. Sun, not suspecting anything, pulled Nagasumi underwater for a moment, causing him to momentarily lose consciousness. When they resurfaced, Sun went to dry her legs. Maki saw an opportunity to attack because she was obstacle, but Nagasumi was determined to protect the life his wife had saved from being taken away so easily. When the shot was fired, Sun jumped in front of it, but she didn't hold it against her friend. Maki begged her not to hurt Nagasumi, which touched everyone's heart. After that, Nagasumi was no longer a target for Maki. When Masa came to pick them up, he was amazed to see that the persistent ghost had finally been conquered. It was then that Nagasumi bravely said his goodbyes, announcing his return to the city for school. To everyone's surprise, Sun stated that as his wife, she would stay by his side. Maki went back to inform the mob boss about the situation, and he was so distressed that he almost cried blood. This indicated a potential loss for him if the couple moved back to the city for their studies. The next day, Sun's mother and grandmother came to bid farewell to the couple. Nagasumi felt thankful, as Sun had to leave her loved ones because of him. Yet, things took a dramatic turn when his father-in-law held onto the outside of the high-speed train as they left, leaving Nagasumi in a tough spot. Opening his bag, he was surprised to find Maki inside, who declared she was there to look after Sun. When they got home, even though the place was small, Nagasumi's parents called it cozy. Nagasumi enjoyed being so close to his wife, allowing them to easily share their love. But now he had to deal with Maki too. His parents were charmed by Maki's cute looks, unaware that she was trouble in disguise. Nagasumi, having dealt with her before, was genuinely concerned. Sun took over Nagasumi's room, and he moved to the attic, filled with old memories. Initially, Sun didn't like the idea of him in the attic and offered to switch places, but seeing her concern made Nagasumi love her even more. He agreed to stay in the attic until they could get married. Now the excitement picks up as the couple decides to take a bath together. Maki, in a fit of rage, shoots a hole in a corner of the house, which shocks Nagasumi's parents. Luckily, Sun, who comes from a rich family, calms her in-laws by giving them gold from a sunken ship and jokingly tells them they can break things if they want to. Maki accuses Nagasumi of peeping, which leads his father to knock him out immediately. The next day, things start to calm down, and Nagasumi asks his wife to go shopping with him while Maki is sleeping. Sun is thrilled by all the new sights. At one point, they notice two girls being harassed by some thugs. Sun, a mob boss's daughter, is eager to step in, but Nagasumi stops her from using her ultrasonic wave to avoid accidental harm. Just then, a small but skilled martial artist, Maori, a friend of Nagasumi known for her fierce skills, steps in and saves the girls. When the thugs realize their plan is foiled, they try to confront her, but she cleverly shifts the blame to Nagasumi, prompting them to attack him. Facing a 2-on-1 situation, Nagasumi cleverly drags them into the river. Just when Nagasumi thought they would get away, the thugs kept chasing them. Seeing her friend in trouble, Maori jumped in to help, even though she couldn't swim. This reckless move left Nagasumi exhausted as he had to help her too. At that moment, Sun managed to pull the attackers underwater and use her sonic abilities to incapacitate them, allowing them to safely return to shore. Nagasumi teased Maori about her tomboyish behavior, suggesting she might want to adopt a more feminine demeanor now that she was older. However, he quickly regretted his words, feeling embarrassed, which made Sun swim away. Realizing his blunder, Nagasumi followed her and apologized while drying her tail. Instead of being upset, Sun was actually intrigued by Maori's fiery spirit. Later, Maki arrived at the scene, knowing she had taken Sun to a secluded spot. She launched an attack on Nagasumi, who, now accustomed to her tactics, dodged all her moves. Unexpectedly, Maori hadn't left but was searching for them. To keep Maki from being spotted, Nagasumi pretended she was just a doll. As Sun greeted her friend, she discovered Maori's ambition to become the police chief like her father. Given that the police were the enemies of the underworld gangs, it seemed unlikely that their friendship could continue. The scene then shifts to a bar where Masa is drinking, still upset after being shoved from a high-speed train by his son-in-law. The gang leader has lost an arm and is seething with anger towards Nagasumi, hinting at potentially deadly repercussions. Summer vacation has ended, and Nagasumi must return to school, but this time, his wife joins him. Maki continues to wake him up with guns and knives, significantly enhancing his ability to sense danger. His beloved wife has changed into new clothes, leaving him mesmerized by her beauty. Her father also sends a postcard, ensuring that all school enrollment paperwork is ready, and that the family will always protect them, making Nagasumi quite nervous. He decides to keep their marriage a secret at school to avoid complications. Suddenly, Sarutobi, a friend of Nagasumi, greets him, impressed by the beautiful girl with him. This is Sarutobi, a close friend who loves to brawl. It turns out Sun will also be in their class. Later, Maori asks about their relationship, deeply intrigued by her close friend Nagasumi. She makes up an excuse when she learns they will have a new homeroom teacher this year, Sarutobi. While everyone is talking, Sarutobi is suddenly thrown against a wall by this aggressive new teacher, leaving everyone in shock. Nagasumi is terrified because the teacher is none other than his fearsome dickhead father-in-law, who has secured a teaching position through his connections. With the demeanor of a leader, he plans to run the class in a gangster style. As he introduces the new student's son, everyone is surprised to see they share the same last name. Her father tries to seat her next to him, but she defiantly moves to sit next to her husband, angering her father. It seems like their student life is over, but wait, Sarutobi is still causing trouble in the background. Nagasumi takes his friend to the infirmary, only to discover his mother-in-law also works there. She embraces him, shockingly suggesting if Sun isn't satisfying him, he could consider her, leaving him stunned. It turns out the school environment is completely controlled by the Mermaid gang. This year's math teacher is Masa, who is at least decent compared to the rest. At this point, Mr. Shark Fujishiro also arrives, asking for some meat, startling Nagasumi not to mention the giant octopus above. This guy is one of the biggest threats at the school. Sun has begun to assert herself now that she's surrounded by family. Nagasumi thought his wife would be upset and teach them a lesson, but to his surprise, she was actually happy to be cared for by everyone in the family. It seems like a total loss now as he has to face his father-in-law and his minions every day. Later, Masa comes over to share his concerns with Nagasumi, questioning whether it's really okay to just yield to the boss, as it would mean giving up on his wife's affection. Nagasumi realizes the gravity of the situation and reignites his determination to be a man his wife can depend on. Despite this renewed spirit, the second day of school proves even more chaotic than the first. The homeroom teacher is unhelpful, and they learn little. However, Masa shines during math class, making complex concepts easy to grasp. During gym class, the mischievous Sarutobi attempts to usher Nagasumi into manhood by sneaking peeks at the girls changing. But they get caught. This is where Mr. Shark Fujishiro, also known as the Killer Shark, comes into play. Known for his menacing watch over the girls, he corners Nagasumi, leaving him with two dire choices: face the killing shark or the young and hot chicks. Ultimately, Nagasumi decides it's safer to face the girls and dashes into their changing room, causing utter chaos. At the day's end, feeling overwhelmed, Nagasumi contemplates jumping off a bridge. Just before he can take any drastic action, his wife calls. She and her friend Maori had already cleared up the misunderstanding with the girls, so there was no longer any reason to worry. Sun wasn't angry. She trusted her husband and believed there had to be a valid reason for his actions. This deep trust only made Nagasumi admire her more, truly seeing her as the angel of his life. The next day, Nagasumi's father woke up and noticed how much his daughter-in-law resembled his wife in her younger days. Back then, he was a formidable fighter with long hair and steeped in debt. It would take another 5 years to clear their financial obligations, but the couple aged happily together, their hair graying and teeth loosening in blissful contentment. Now, things had changed. Having a foolish child had aged the mother significantly, leaving her looking perpetually tired. When asked why he was gazing at his daughter-in-law, it turned out he was simply reminiscing about his younger days. This led to unfortunate rumors, causing his sister-in-law to scold him, mistakenly thinking he had a crush on his daughter-in-law. Nagasumi, however, was completely smitten with his beautiful wife, a true case of like father, like son. His mother also expressed concern, asking if he was troubled, but it turned out that this ambiguous relationship was still a secret to everyone. Fortunately, the daughters were so charmed by Sun that it alleviated his concerns. However, Sarutobi were annoyed, noticing him always smiling to himself whenever he looked their way. Maori intervened since her father is the police chief. Their house is stocked with figure-8 handcuffs, which she used to restrain anyone who misbehaved. Seeing her husband so close to that friend, Sun questioned Sarutobi about it. He explained that they had been close since childhood, like wind and clouds. The four of them played cards together, and it felt very different from before. Now, Nagasumi had another girl to care about, which made Maori think. That afternoon, she pondered their closeness and decided to investigate what was being hidden. Feeling neglected, she was uncomfortable. In the days that followed, Maori kept a vigilant eye on everyone, reminding her fellow students to stick to the rules. Eventually, she caught them coming out of a building together as they arrived at school. In front of the entire class, Nagasumi was interrogated about it, leaving Sun in tears, fearing her husband might end up in jail. To get him to confess, Maori resorted to using her secret weapon. She brought delicious food to tempt him. Nagasumi confessed to living with Sun, which left Maori stunned, even though they insisted they were just relatives. When questioned about her father, Sun turned to find him employing old-school torture techniques on Nagasumi, asking about her mother's whereabouts. At that moment, her mother appeared, having just intervened by striking her father. The whole class was astonished to discover that her entire family were faculty members at the school. Sun explained that due to internal family disputes, she had to temporarily live with Nagasumi. Suddenly, a classmate accidentally spilled water on Sun, causing everyone to panic. Nagasumi quickly rushed to cover her and dry her off before anyone could notice. Fortunately, when Maori checked, it had already turned back into a leg, but she suspected the girl might have seen something in that brief moment. Back home, Maori began to delve into Sun's family background, and from that day forward, she was always on high alert around Nagasumi, making him anxious. As expected, the girl tried to spill water on Sun again, but Nagasumi shielded her with his body. Maori later brought up the incident with the mermaid tail, but Nagasumi skillfully changed the subject. However, being born into a family of police with a long tradition, Maori's investigative instincts were strong, and she continued to splash water on Sun, with Nagasumi always taking the brunt of it to prevent any escalation. That afternoon, sensing she was being followed, Maki planned to confront the stalker for blood. Sun stopped her because her secret hadn't been exposed yet, and moreover, she didn't want to disappoint her protective husband. As they left, they sat in an empty lot where a futuristic robotic cat usually played, but a real cat appeared with a miraculous bag. Maori, deducing that since Sun is a fish and fish fear cats, brought the cat to sleep over. Her logic, typical of a future police chief, was truly brilliant, and it worked when the cat, smelling fish, clung to Sun. Fearful yet unwilling to expose her identity or use her powers, Sun decided to endure everything for a peaceful life with her husband. Seeing his wife suffer, Nagasumi scolded Maori for prying into someone else's private life, especially since Sun hadn't done anything to deserve such treatment. This disappointed him about his friend, making Maori very sad as she ran home. In a dangerous twist, as a car rushed towards her, Nagasumi risked himself to make Sun use her shockwave to knock down the car, ensuring their safety. Nagasumi felt proud of her for acting that way. Later, everyone rushed to the hospital to ensure that the driver was all right. More importantly, Sarutobi had heard the commotion and discussed it with Maori, who found it amusing that Sun's sonic ability had saved the day. Then, when someone accidentally spilled water on Sun's leg again, Maori herself quickly covered it, showing no concern for what might be revealed. She then apologized for prying into her friend's private life and swiftly dragged the mischievous cat away. The scene then shifts to a concert by a famous idol named Lunar. Her voice was so captivating that it drew a large crowd of fans. Unbeknownst to them, she was also a mermaid and the daughter of another gang leader. Backstage, her manager came to inform her that her close friend Sun had arrived, adding another layer of intrigue to the event. Hearing the news, Lunar canceled her performance the next day to properly welcome Sun. Historically, whenever the two gangs interacted, she was always the center of attention, captivating fans with her voice. However, there was someone even more striking, Sun, whose squeaky voice could make all the underlings weep, and to Lunar, this felt like a slight. Consequently, Lunar has considered Sun her rival ever since. The following afternoon, after school, in a heavy downpour, Nagasumi hurried home only to find a mermaid lying there. It was Lunar, the idol he greatly admired. She attempted to use her sonic abilities to knock him out, but Nagasumi was accustomed to such attacks and remained unharmed. Just then, Lunar's subordinates arrived, intending to eliminate Nagasumi as a witness, but Sun intervened in time. The rivals recognized each other, and despite the tension, Sun cherished Lunar and rushed to embrace her. Lunar, caught off guard, responded in a childlike, gentle, and endearing manner. Inside, as Nagasumi dried off the idol, questions about their relationship arose. Sun proudly declared Nagasumi her husband, a revelation that Lunar found hard to believe. She questioned how such noble mermaids could love humans, suggesting it would be easier to just reincarnate him. Sun insisted that wasn't what she wanted. Moreover, Nagasumi, undeterred, stated he was not afraid of being killed by Lunar because his life belonged solely to Sun. This bold declaration infuriated Lunar even more, as it seemed she had lost to Sun once again. Since her childhood, Lunar had poured her heart into singing but could never surpass Sun. Now, Lunar aimed to take everything from her friend by claiming Nagasumi for herself. She justified this by stating that since Nagasumi had seen her true form, she had a right to him. Unlike Sun, she wanted to make Nagasumi her slave for life, a notion that strangely pleased her. Caught between the two women vying for him, Nagasumi was at a loss. The next morning, Nagasumi woke up to find Lunar lying next to him. He was astonished that his idol was sleeping beside him. Sun discovered them together and was shocked, especially since Lunar had declared her intention to do this with her friend's husband. Heartbroken, Sun asked her husband what they should do, but he had no answer. Meanwhile, downstairs, his parents faced a similar daunting situation with two imposing dickheads standing next to them, making even breakfast feel overwhelmingly pressured. When it was time for school, Nagasumi was shocked to find that Lunar had transferred there, determined to claim him at any cost. Her self-sacrifice seemed to please her, and while the gang leader was familiar with such drama, he let it slide. Lunar introduced herself as Sun's former neighbor, impressing their classmates who were thrilled to be near a famous idol. In class, Lunar and Sun competed fiercely in everything. Lunar's fame meant even a cough brought her attention and supplies from classmates. Sun, though not as famous, was still beloved and often stole the spotlight. The class soon split into two factions, one supporting Lunar and the other charmed by Sun. Amidst this rivalry, Nagasumi tried to stay neutral but often ended up being mistreated, caught in the crossfire of the two factions. The entire school had become a battleground for the rival factions, with Nagasumi targeted by Lunar's fans because she showed significant interest in him. Fortunately, Maori, leading a group of girls from the neighborhood police side, came to his rescue and dealt with the aggressors. Nagasumi was then taken back to the base and scolded for his part in escalating the conflict between Lunar and Sun into an all-out war. When asked to choose between the two, his dismissive remark that it wasn't their business earned him a beating. The old saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned," seemed apt as the girls considered drastic measures to resolve the situation. From their vantage point, Lunar declared that a mountain cannot have two tigers, but Sun showed no interest in competing and was willing to let Lunar have her way. This indifference only fueled Lunar's desire to fight for Nagasumi. After being cornered by the police and then targeted by gangsters, Nagasumi sat praying for a quick end to his ordeal, even imagining Buddha mocking the situation. Realizing the gravity, Saruto decided to rush home to negotiate with both sides. However, the situation had worsened as Maki had been seriously injured by Lunar's bodyguards, escalating tensions between the gangs. Sun's father was also gearing up for a fight, showing that the conflict had grown beyond just a rivalry between Lunar and Sun. Although the men's side wouldn't be involved, Nagasumi reassured everyone to stay calm. Despite her reluctance to resort to violence, Sun took up arms when she saw her friend injured. Wanting to help resolve the matter, Nagasumi approached Lunar with a proposal to settle their dispute through a singing contest. Lunar agreed, stating that if she won, Nagasumi would become her slave. Quickly, a stage was set for their showdown. With her nationwide popularity, Lunar proved her singing prowess, and while Sun was initially overshadowed, she remained confident and began to sing. Her performance gradually showcased her brilliance. However, their songs had a brainwashing effect on the audience. Nagasumi, being used to it, was unaffected, but he feared that continued exposure might drive everyone else mad. He asked Sun if she had any other songs to counter Lunar's. Realizing the dire situation, Sun didn't have her own songs but came up with an idea to ask for her husband's help by drawing on the power of their love. Nagasumi successfully transformed into a dragon and stopped the conflict. After the violence ended, the joy also subsided. Lunar was saddened by her loss, but more importantly, Sun wanted her friend to apologize to Maki. Lunar's dismissive attitude claimed she hadn't done anything to warrant an apology, which stunned everyone. Later, Maki came forward and revealed that she had attacked first and accidentally ran into an electric pole, not actually harmed by Lunar's bodyguards. Embarrassed by her mistake, she admitted she had lied about the incident, bringing the situation to a close. A few days after settling back into school, trouble followed them yet again. In another bizarre incident, a submarine broke through the floor to surface at the school. The man who emerged introduced himself as Kai, claiming to be Sun's lover, leaving everyone in shock. Nagasumi was furious now that a wealthy rival had appeared. Kai announced plans to chop Nagasumi into 3 pieces for whisking away the innocent girl. However, before he could act on his threat, Sun intervened by slamming a ball into his face. Maori also demanded an explanation from Kai, but he seemed unfazed, his family's wealth allowing him to casually offer to compensate the school for any damages, which unexpectedly pleased everyone. It seemed the saying "money can't buy happiness" was wrong. Not only can money buy happiness, but it also allows you to bother others at will. Kai revealed he had tunneled from the sea to the school before driving his submarine in, demonstrating the extravagant ways the wealthy can spend their money. Kai also referred to Sun as his bride and came to challenge Nagasumi, believing he had forced Sun to come here after discovering she was a mermaid. As a member of the Killer Whale League, he couldn't allow his childhood friend to be taken away by another. He reminisced about being a lonely child without friends until he met Sun. Her father had come to discuss business with his family, and from then on, they became close friends. Sun always knew how to cheer Kai up, and their playtime together was meaningful. Lunar also tried to get acquainted with this wealthy young master, but Kai dismissively brushed her off. Despite her beauty and talent, Kai dismissed Lunar as trivial compared to Sun, his harsh words breaking her heart. Nagasumi faced a formidable opponent in Kai, who had everything: money, looks, supercars. I mean guys, he is the top G of this anime, while all Nagasumi had was his pride. Yet, the determined young man couldn't let his wife be stolen like that and decided to engage in a fierce duel. They tumbled out into the vast expanse. Normally, people fear confined spaces, but Kai, the fish, was the opposite. When he was 6, he followed his grandfather on a business trip and ended up lost in the Sahara Desert, nearly turning into a dried fish, a fear he still harbored to this day. Sun also spoke up, unable to believe that her friend had changed so drastically, using money and power to oppress others. Kai listened, understood her dismay, and apologized, promising not to repeat his actions and to fight Nagasumi fairly in the future. The next day, Kai, dubbed the Killer Whale, enrolled in school, driving Nagasumi to tears of despair. With a sports festival looming, both men were eager to compete. Despite his fear of open spaces, Kai was determined to win Sun back at all costs, and even went to NASA to purchase an astronaut suit. This suit, while effective in space, was ridiculed on Earth, but it helped Kai manage his phobia, allowing him to compete. The competition, being a team event, meant their rivalry would continue. Unfortunately, during the event, Kai hit his head and broke the visor of his helmet. Luckily, Sarutobi quickly seized the moment and prepared a spare helmet for him, which led to Kai recruiting him as a subordinate. In the final competition, Kai was determined to settle the score once and for all. The loser would have to leave Sun's life forever. Nagasumi, believing he was likely to lose but determined to fight for his wife, boldly accepted the challenge. Sun, deeply concerned, trusted her husband not to let her fall into another's hands. As they competed, it began to rain. Unaware of the changing weather, Kai removed some obstacles and ran much faster. Ironically, when he got wet, he transformed into a killer whale, which added a comical twist to the event. 2 other mermaid girls also transformed, so Nagasumi rushed to cover them up. The event paused without a clear winner. A few days later, Nagasumi woke up to a 2-meter tall man threatening him, warning of destruction if he mistreated Lunar. Scared, Nagasumi couldn't explain what happened to his wife. At school, his classmates were curious about his strange behavior. Despite thinking they wouldn't believe him, he told them about the man in the tight black suit who had intimidated him. After hearing Nagasumi's story, no one believed him because it sounded too unbelievable. When he turned around, he saw the intimidating figure at the door with the word death ominously present, sending Nagasumi into a panic. Meanwhile, below the shark Fujishiro, an uninvited guest appeared, clutching a toy and seeming poised to turn the tension into violence. This was the spark that ignited the situation further. Nagasumi tried to explain the situation to his mother-in-law, but she dismissed his story, advising him to focus on other things. Later, noticing an eerie quiet, Nagasumi was shocked to find the large man waiting for him as he left for school, which frightened him even more. In desperation, he sought help from Kai but struggled to grasp the reality of the situation. Only upon returning did he confirm that the 2-meter tall man was indeed an assassin. In a frantic attempt to find cover, they ran outside, resembling dogs in search of a hiding spot, but they were trapped. Sarutobi threw down a rope to extract his boss, and Nagasumi tried to grab it too. But all 3 ended up falling together. They ducked into a restroom to hide, but were quickly found. In a burst of frustration, Kai fired his toy, causing a loud explosion, yet the tall man remained unfazed. He even called a NASA scientist to deploy a destruction ray, but nothing worked on this man. Eventually, the entire school was evacuated as Kai decided to confront him directly. Surprisingly, he was punched so hard he thought he'd see his ancestors. In a crucial moment, Sun intervened to protect her husband. Just as she was about to unleash her sonic wave attack, the wrestler covered her mouth, familiar with her tactics. Seeing his wife in danger, Nagasumi sprang into action but was swiftly subdued. The game boss then struck the man for daring to touch his son. Despite countless punches, the large man was unharmed. A single blow pinned the boss's head into the toilet. He then questioned Nagasumi's intentions with Lunar, even as he bled from his head. Before Nagasumi could reply, his father-in-law attacked again. The 2 titans clashed like superheroes, each delivering blows with all their might, causing Sun great anxiety. Ultimately, neither fell, and the situation began to de-escalate. It turned out that the formidable man was Lunar's father, who had gone berserk upon learning his daughter was staying overnight at a strange boy's house, showing an overprotectiveness that matched that of Nagasumi's own family. At that moment, Sam recalled their previous meeting, and indeed, both patriarchs recognized each other. But, like 2 fierce tigers, they had to battle it out before they could have a real conversation. The father and son duo were quite reserved and barely spoke to each other, leaving with a promise to meet Nagasumi again. A few days later, during a school health check, Lunar was dismayed to find she had gained weight, turning into a fat bitch. Determined to shed the extra pounds, she convinced Sun to join her in a weight loss plan. Back home, they went online and stumbled upon grandfather Mosul live-streaming a sales event. Upon hearing his daughter's weight loss plans, he ordered some specialized products for her. The package was filled with unique items tailored for mermaids, which thrilled Lunar. She eagerly pulled her friend into starting their exercise routine immediately. Moreover, the gang boss had installed a state-of-the-art weight loss device dubbed the Carp Leaping Over the Dragon Gate. The 2 girls found the machine incredibly effective, facilitating intense workouts similar to the mythical carp's transformation into a dragon. Later, it was the gang boss's turn to try the machine, sparking Nagasumi's curiosity. He was keen to witness his father-in-law's real form but was barred from doing so. Instead, his curiosity led to a rough reprimand from the two old jerks. Outside, Nagasumi discovered an energy drink made from mermaids and quickly drank it down. Sun tried to stop him, but it was too late. She knew the dire consequences for a human who consumed it. Almost immediately, Nagasumi's body began to transform, enlarging him into a giant who inadvertently destroyed their beloved home, shocking his father who had spent 30 years building it. In response, Sun used her singing to lull the entire neighborhood into a deep sleep. Despite her efforts, she couldn't awaken her transformed husband. If left unchecked, Nagasumi's continued rampage could devastate the entire neighborhood, raising widespread alarm. Kai also stepped in to help, but with little success. Desperate, a wealthy individual even contacted NASA to remove Nagasumi from Earth. Furious about the looming loss of her husband yet anxious for a solution, Sun was relieved to eventually find him safely situated on the moon. Meanwhile, Kai and the gang boss viewed the chaos as a chance to eliminate Nagasumi and launched a missile. However, Nagasumi remained unharmed due to his resilient state. During this crisis, Sun's mother hurried back with a special weapon she had purchased online, designed to bring her son-in-law back from the moon. The weapon was incredibly heavy, its weight a testament to the depth of love Sun held for Nagasumi. Launching it to the moon symbolized her eternal love for her husband. Miraculously, Sun managed to throw it all the way to the moon. The impact woke Nagasumi, allowing him to return to his normal state and safely come back home. Upon his return, knowing he was still conscious, his father punched him for ruining the home they had painstakingly built over 30 years. Quickly, a new house was constructed, more comfortable than the previous one, bringing her immense happiness. Having in-laws like these was indeed remarkable. After the mother and daughter went out shopping, they left Lunar at home alone with Nagasumi. He suggested that Lunar could improve by speaking more charmingly. Lunar, amused by his suggestion, mockingly sold products to him, teasing him for his bold advice. Using her charm, she enticed him to her room, misleading him to think something inappropriate might be happening. However, Lunar was actually struggling with her schoolwork and only wanted help with her homework. Given her poor academic performance, she was at risk of being expelled and knew she needed to work harder. While Nagasumi was devotedly helping Lunar with her homework, he encouraged her to sit on his lap, which spurred him to assist even more earnestly. However, recalling that he was Sun's husband, Lunar casually lay back down, even though he had long admired her. In a moment of weakness, Nagasumi leaned in for a kiss, but they were caught by Maki. Maki threatened to report their kiss and their study session to the young mistress, alarming both of them. Interestingly, Maki would actually prefer if the two were together, as it would prevent her young mistress from having to marry a human. Upon hearing Maki suggest that Lunar had feelings for Nagasumi, Lunar vehemently denied it. Nagasumi also affirmed his love only for Sun, which slightly upset Lunar. Maki then tried to seduce him using her beauty, lamenting that no one would desire her salted fish body. Feeling disheartened, Lunar scolded her servant, declaring that he could only love her as his master. She felt dismayed, seeing herself as always falling short compared to Sun. However, Nagasumi didn't view her that way. He appreciated her as an excellent idol. His genuine compliments warmed Lunar's heart, even though she still felt like she was second to Sun. Just as the three fathers walked into the room to check on the youngsters, they caught Nagasumi drying Lunar's feet, which infuriated them. They started chasing him around like a wild dog. Fortunately, Lunar stepped in to calm things down, but the situation was far from resolved. When Sun and her mother returned from the market and heard about the supposed affair between Nagasumi and Lunar, they were heartbroken. The presence of the two impulsive merman fathers only escalated the tension, complicating matters further. They confronted Lunar, asking if she loved Nagasumi. Upon her admission, her father presented Nagasumi with two grim choices, death or a life worse than death. In a misunderstanding, he chose the latter, believing it meant taking responsibility and marrying Lunar. Sun was devastated by this news. Nagasumi was then whisked away to Lunar's family to prepare for the wedding. Everyone advised Sun to forget Nagasumi, deepening her sorrow. She couldn't help but blame herself for not being able to keep her husband. The following day, when Lunar returned to collect her belongings, she found her rival, Sun, deeply sad but not blaming herself. Despite wanting to reveal that Nagasumi truly loved Sun, Lunar couldn't bring herself to say it, given the complexities of their rivalry. Sun had never directly asked her husband if he loved her. Additionally, Lunar's family was actually pleased about her newfound freedom, which kept Maki from speaking up. Lunar felt that she should be the one to explain why Nagasumi was drying her feet, yet she feared that telling the truth might position her as the loser in the situation. That evening, Sun began to pack her belongings to leave the family home, which saddened Nagasumi's parents. At the same time, Nagasumi was confined. When Luna returned, she shared why she often clashed with Sun. She lacked the family support Sun had. Luna's mother had left when she was just 5, and her father was always silent, resulting in little communication within her family. In contrast, Sun had everything, which intensified Luna's desire for Nagasumi's love. It was the only way she felt she could compete with her friend. As the situation unfolded, Nagasumi tentatively agreed to the wedding, which was quickly set into motion. The pressure was immense, both sets of parents were involved, and the atmosphere was tense, with Nagasumi perceived as playing with Sun's emotions. Amidst the gathering of both gangs, one member even attempted a suicide attack on him but was thwarted by Uncle Masa and others. With the union underway, their previous guise as teachers was no longer necessary. During the proceedings, the future father-in-law offered Nagasumi a drink, which he declined, explaining that Luna's feelings for him were not genuine love but rather a competitive impulse. He believed that true love should be mutual, not commanded. This confession brought Luna to tears, and her father was on the verge of reacting angrily. Despite this, Nagasumi recognized and respected the deep bond between Luna and her father. The air began to clear when Luna confessed that there was no romantic involvement between them. Nagasumi was simply helping her dry her feet. Yet, she admitted her feelings for him were sincere. Upon hearing this, the old man still insisted on proceeding with the wedding. Just then, Sun arrived, determined to win back the man she loved, even at the cost of cutting ties with her own father. Her father was so shocked by her resolve that it nearly stunned him. Sun's act was intended to prevent any gang conflict and stop them from interfering. She confronted the opposing gang alone, rushing to reclaim her husband and openly professing her love, asking Nagasumi to marry her. Overjoyed, he accepted, having seen her as his wife since the previous summer, which delighted her. Witnessing Sun's determination, her gang prepared for a potential battle. Luna felt a sense of relief, but the looming threat of a gang clash was still a concern. To quell the brewing storm, the two girls used their enchanting voices to sing, soothing everyone present and calming the situation. Finally, Luna's father inquired whether she still intended to go through with the wedding. Even though she longed to be loved just as she was and recognized the joy around her, she decided against the marriage, believing she could eventually capture her beloved's heart. Days later, everyone returned to Nagasumi's home, resuming their usual lives. On one particular day, Maki encountered a cat that persistently licked her. Observing her solo interaction, Nagasumi took the cat to school, where it was adored by all except the merfolk. Nagasumi cleverly used the cat to frighten Kai away. Uncle Masa, formerly terrified of cats, had grown less fearful. He even concocted a plan to use the cat to intimidate his father-in-law, Gouzaburou. However, when Guamu showed up, Gouzaburou, despite his formidable presence, disappeared instantly at the sight of the kitten. Nagasumi used this moment to pursue Gouzaburou, turning the tables as now he had usually been the one pursued. Sun later shared that her father's fear of cats originated from a childhood incident where he was bitten by one while asleep, leaving him permanently scared. Upon discovering that his son-in-law hadn't removed the cat, Baburu commanded Maki to summon the bodyguards to deal with Nagasumi immediately. During a gym class, the three Meguro brothers concocted a plan to use a soccer ball to discreetly take out Nagasumi, aiming not to arouse Sun's suspicions. However, the three bodyguards called in for the task were clueless. They didn't even recognize Megumi and ended up asking him directly. Realizing something was amiss, the quick-thinking young man pointed at Kai, who then endured a severe beating. Maki had to intervene to correct the bodyguard's mistake and direct them to the actual target. Meanwhile, Nagasumi had brought a protective spirit animal, and the situation quickly swung in his favor. The cat triggered panic among the fish-like people, wreaking havoc throughout the school. Kai exacerbated the chaos by summoning the entire fleet, leading to total pandemonium. Uncle Masa and Nagasumi's mother stepped in to quell the unnecessary turmoil. By the end of the day, recognizing his weakening hold, the gang boss hatched a new scheme targeting the cat. In a rash move, one of the bodyguards tried to grab the kitten and throw it into the water, alarming Nagasumi. He was about to dive in to rescue it when Sun intervened, asserting that underwater rescues were her specialty. Despite her initial reluctance, she dove in to save the kitten, forcing Maki to join in. Together, they managed to rescue the kitten, although the father and the three bodyguards were not as fortunate. The next day, Lunar was tied up with a performance and took a day off from school. Kai had a special gift for the beautiful girl that delighted her, a pair of tickets to the hottest movie currently playing. Sun, who also adored the movie's leading character, however, declined Kai's invitation for a date since she was married and couldn't go out with someone else. Observing his boss's disappointment, Sarutobi suggested they go on a double date, which would also allow him to spend time with Sun. He then invited Maori, who was equally a big fan of the movie. The four of them made plans to go on a double date the following Sunday. The class president overheard their plans and, being quite fond of Nagasumi, felt her heart sink knowing they were planning a date. She decided to disguise herself to observe the date. Although it appeared there were only two couples, Lunar was free that day and decided to join them. When it came time to pair up, the couples remained intact while Sarutobi ended up with the idol, which frustrated him greatly. Unable to accept this pairing, Lunar sent Nagasumi to buy drinks. During his errand, he unexpectedly ran into the class president who was out for a walk. She had let her hair down and changed her glasses, which made her unrecognizable to Nagasumi. After he accidentally broke her glasses and found himself without money, he invited her to return with him to Lunar to ask for some funds. Meanwhile, Sun accidentally fell into the water, prompting Nagasumi to quickly kick Sarutobi in the mouth to prevent him from spotting Sun's mermaid tail. Lunar also fell in, so she and Nagasumi decided to swim away to another spot. Using Lunar's black card, Nagasumi took his friend, the class president, to a store to buy new glasses. Without her glasses and seeing him in a blur, she didn't realize it was Nagasumi, and since neither recognized the other, they shared a candid moment of youthful confiding, which led the girl to realize she was developing feelings for Kai. Kai, who was paired with Maori, felt awkward as it was the first time they had been so close for such an extended period, leading them to lean on each other for support. Meanwhile, the class president, having lost her glasses, stumbled into some bushes and had to hold on to Nagasumi's arm as they walked past where Sun's father was playing ball. They were caught in what appeared to be a compromising position, but their friend explained that there was no romantic involvement, so Sun's father let them go. The two continued their quest for glasses, unaware of each other's true identity until the very end. The eyewear salespeople, impressed by the prestigious black card, called a luxury car to take them home like VIPs. In the car, the girl expressed her gratitude to Nagasumi, but once she put on her glasses and recognized him, she quickly left for another place, overwhelmed by the mix-up. The class president felt sad for not realizing sooner who she cared about. She was also upset that Nagasumi didn't recognize her. To avoid embarrassment, she pretended not to know him when he asked for her name. Before she could respond, Sun and her family arrived, ending their conversation. The class president said goodbye, promising to meet again without revealing her name. At the start of the week, a new student named Akino joined their school. She seemed formidable and always watched Sun and her friends closely. Lunar and Sun couldn't figure out what kind of person she was, but she seemed to know a lot about them. Akino's presence also troubled Nagasumi because she gave off a very dangerous vibe. On the contrary, Sarutobi was completely smitten with her because he found her stunning from head to toe. When she asked about Nagasumi's relationship with the two girls, he said they were relatives. Kai, noticing she carried a sword, wanted to get to know her because he was also fond of swords. When Akino saw Kai fighting with Nagasumi, she intervened and disqualified Kai, which meant he could no longer appear in the human world. It turned out that she was an inspector and also a merperson like them. Sun was worried after learning that Akino had come to assess everyone's actions at school, but she couldn't reveal this because doing so would mean her own disqualification. Maki was a clear example of this, as she was currently being packed up to be sent back to the sea. The boss was also silent, fearing that expulsion to the sea would be too harsh, so it was up to Sun to save everyone on her own. Any merperson who revealed their identity or acted excessively beyond human capabilities was disqualified. Masa was seriously evaluated but found to have no issues. Sun, fearing she might be taken away from her husband, also felt immense pressure. Nagasumi sensed something unusual about Akino and tried to ask her a few questions but gained no new information. Seeing his wife worried, he asked her as well, but the laws were strict and Sun could not disclose them. Moreover, she had promised Akino, so she pretended everything was fine to reassure her husband. Seeing her trustworthy demeanor, Akino commended her, but within seconds, Sun accidentally spilled water on herself. Quick as a flash, Inspector Akino subdued everyone in the class and told Nagasumi to dry Sun. She would protect their secret herself. Meanwhile, Kai, eager for revenge, used Mermaid's sword techniques, which immediately led to him being disqualified again. Seeing this, the boss said nothing and simply sent the human students away. Sun transformed back and boasted to her friend, but this only infuriated Akino further. When they clashed, Sun was fearless, her demeanor completely changing when she wielded a sword. Realizing she had been disqualified, she sadly asked her husband if he would be willing to go back to the sea with her. Confused by the situation but resolved, Akino decided not to disqualify Sun anymore since she hadn't physically touched her. She considered it as if she hadn't made it official. Sun had to become stronger to avoid being touched by the inspector, thus remaining safe. That night, the members of my group who had been previously disqualified came forward, seeking fairness. Akino, being too powerful, easily defeated them. Nevertheless, their desire to remain in the city was unwavering. The next day, they trailed behind her like 3 clumsy followers. To others, it appeared as though they were wearing masks or something similar. After being handled roughly, the 3 bodyguards decided to stick with the inspector to prove themselves. Observing Akino's fury, they joined the 3 brothers, which only made her angrier. Sarutobi, smitten with the attractive newcomer, stayed close to her in hopes of getting her attention. His persistence was unmatched, and no one dared to challenge him for first place. His clinginess left Akino frustrated. Naori, noticing the commotion, stepped in to disperse the crowd and tried to learn more about the new girl, but she was turned away. Later, Kai reappeared and scolded Sarutobi for swearing loyalty to him but now siding with the enemy. Sarutobi, fearless, told Kai he was past his prime and struck him, literally cutting him in 2. Yet, Sarutobi stubbornly still wanted to serve under Akino, which drove the gang boss mad. Since her arrival, he felt sidelined and had to be cautious to avoid being sent back to the sea, a disastrous prospect at this point. Maori, representing the discipline committee, condemned Akino for apparently trying to build a power base within the school. Maori herself was highly regarded by many female students, so Akino faced significant pressure from them as well. She explained that she was not a boss or involved in anything shady, but with a crowd already forming behind her, only a fool would believe that. The situation continued to deteriorate, and even the new leadership couple couldn't stop it. Thus, a new power led by Akino with voluntary underlings emerged. Sarutobi introduced this beautiful newcomer to the boys at school, drawing many into the game. The girls still following Maori came to quell the chaos. Like before, they confiscated everything Sarutobi was using to promote his agenda, then strategized to prevent the school from turning into a gang, although it was already one from the start. During the meeting, Sun opposed the measures proposed by Maori. She felt that everyone was too quick to judge Akino without really understanding her, which could lead to her being ostracized and left without friends. Maori later realized she was being hasty. She had made a similar mistake with Sam before, so she couldn't afford to do so again. Meanwhile, 3 men were plotting to get rid of Akino because she was becoming too troublesome. Their wives discovered their plan and promptly reprimanded them to prevent any foolish actions. Maori then approached them, and they dispersed, realizing they had been saved from a bigger conflict. At this point, Maori wanted to discuss the newcomer and her own role in leading the girls to ostracize her. Seeing this, Sun's mother consoled her, suggesting that being suspicious isn't always bad and being cautious could sometimes save you from a clear loss. Just then, the class president arrived to report that Akino was being troubled by some people. A few opportunists, seeing Akino in trouble, decided to turn against her, but Maori stopped the pointless argument. The puppeteers behind the scenes were also discovered, which made the real boss shudder. He may have been a boss in name, but to his wife, he was just a nuisance and was quickly taken down. Moreover, Sun's mother stepped forward to conclusively end the matter with convincing words. Maori apologized to her friend for having doubted her, and was praised with the hope that she would become a good police officer in the future. The boss later announced to the students about a field trip planned for the next day. It should have been announced a week ago, but he had fallen asleep during the meeting and forgot. The notice was sudden, and everyone was excited about the trip except for Sun, who pulled her husband aside to talk privately. It turned out she was worried about the possibility of having to bathe with others during the trip, which could expose her mermaid identity. Akino had warned that if Sun's mermaid form was revealed on this outing, she would have to return to the sea. Maki also wanted to come along to protect her lady but wasn't trusted much by Nagasumi. Moreover, this little one would ruin their privacy. Returning to his seat, Nagasumi looked as gloomy as if he was constipated, prompting Maori to ask what was wrong. He concocted another excuse to brush it off and was advised to cheer up. The 2 guys sitting next to him were in a similar predicament, wishing Lunar was there to lighten the mood, as sitting across from Akino was anything but fun. Upon reaching the first location, the atmosphere seemed a bit more cheerful. Sun's father bought her a sword, which she really liked. They even took a family photo, though it turned out looking rather menacing. Sarutobi and Kai seemed better, but one person still appeared lonely, Akino. Seeing this, Nagasumi approached and struck up a conversation, inviting her to walk with him. She realized his concern and explained that her job was to evaluate others, which prevented her from making friends. Emotions would interfere with her work and compromise her fairness. Sharing this with him, Akino smiled gently, likely her first since arriving at the school. Utilizing his instincts, Nagasumi noticed Maki plotting something and managed to intercept a water bullet she fired at his friend. It was the first of many aimed at turning Akino into a mermaid, but surprisingly she endured it. However, once hit with water, a mermaid must revert to her true form, so she could only hold it off for so long. Maki kept firing, soaking her completely, though she managed to hold back her transformation. Sun witnessed this and was furious at Maki's actions. After this incident, Akino lost trust in Nagasumi because he was connected to Maki. Sun apologized to her friend, mentioning that she had locked up the troublesome Maki temporarily. Akino decided to trust them again, especially after learning that Sun had meticulously prepared to face the challenge of not bathing this time. Intrigued, Akino wanted to teach Sun some tricks. Just then, two friends arrived, shocked upon hearing some strange sounds and realizing Akino liked women. The two then went to bathe, having booked a separate room to avoid being discovered. Maori wanted to prevent the two friends from doing something suspicious, but was stopped by Nagasumi, who realized they were bathing and didn't want Maori to see their true forms. Overwhelmed by the suggestive sounds coming from the room, Maori couldn't resist checking on them, only to find they weren't transforming into mermaids but were actually practicing. After this, Akino asked Nagasumi if he had given up, asserting that humans truly couldn't live with merpeople. She advised him to break up with Sun, offering protection from her and her people. However, the young man was determined to stay with Sun despite their hardships. He apologized for what happened in the morning, but she didn't blame him after learning the truth. That night, she met with her boss to discuss their secret mission to split the couple. It turned out that the murder was just an excuse for Akino to stay and achieve her real goal of breaking the ties between humans and merpeople. Although she felt uncomfortable with this task after getting to know them, she had no choice. Her boss gave her some vials of a drug that could make Sun see the bad in humans and leave Nagasumi. The next day started with the boss and some drugged students exploring while the married couple walked through an old film set, unexpectedly running into Maori. She was still very interested in him and felt embarrassed. Meanwhile, Akino started her plan with a few helpers, 3 bodyguards and Kai, who also wanted the couple to split. They agreed to help because if they succeeded, their wrongdoings would be erased, allowing them to stay. When they returned to where Sun and the others were, they found Lunar, who was filming there. She had arranged her schedule to join them for the day. Everyone was a fan of period dramas, so Lunar showed them around. However, things went wrong when they found out the film set was being sabotaged. Lunar didn't worry much because her father had invested in the movie. When he heard about the trouble, he arrived and gave his daughter $1 million. He also hired Mio's group as extras, and they couldn't refuse. He then left, leaving them no choice but to participate, which turned out to be quite fun. It seemed the sabotage was done by Akino's group, who also wanted to join in. Kai brought a potion that was supposed to reveal the evil nature of humans and had everyone drink it, except for Nagasumi, who was cautious about mermaid beverages after a previous transformation. According to Akino, the drink would unleash hidden desires, showing Sun the darker side of Nagasumi. Unsure if it was wise to trust this task to the clueless group, each had already drunk the potion and then offered it to Sun. Kai asked Nagasumi if he had drunk it, and he lied that he had. They then started filming, but something strange happened. Akino, having consumed the drink, suddenly wanted to attack others as it had awakened a violent desire within her. Terrified, Nagasumi ran but was caught by Lunar, who then acted out her own desires of making him her slave. At this moment, Maori intervened, driven by her aspiration to become a police officer. Sensing something was wrong with everyone, Nagasumi made a quick escape as it seemed everyone around him had turned into foes. At this point, Sun appeared, driven by her desire to protect her husband. She used sonic waves to attack those targeting him. Only Akino was unaffected. She drew her sword, ready to fight. Fortunately, this chaotic scene was halted by her superior. At the end of the day, he and Akino concluded that the potion had been ineffective on Sun because, deep in her heart, Nagasumi held a firm and unshakable place unaffected by external influences. For now, the plan to drive them apart was put on hold to carry out a test. Meanwhile, Sun took Nagasumi to a quiet spot to watch the full moon. Since they hadn't had much private time during the trip, he happily held her hand, which made her very happy. The trip ended with everyone having a collection of beautiful photos. Everyone was pleased except Nagasumi, who didn't find any of his photos flattering. Another person who wasn't happy was Lunar, who had been too busy filming to enjoy herself. She took out her frustration on Nagasumi, which led him to notice something unusual outside. It was Lunar's father, who had come to check on his daughter on his rare day off. Feeling sad that she hadn't enjoyed the previous day with her friends, he wished she could have fun like everyone else but was too busy to do anything about it. He asked Nagasumi how he could make his daughter happy, feeling he hadn't provided enough happiness to his wife before she left. Despite his efforts to make his daughter happy, he still felt it wasn't enough. From Nagasumi's perspective, however, Lunar seemed very happy at home, so he thought her father's efforts were more than enough. All that was needed now was to encourage Lunar about the outing. Following Nagasumi's advice, Lunar's father burst into the classroom, startling everyone. His clumsy manner angered Lunar, causing her to throw him out. That evening, still confused about his daughter's feelings, he went online to seek help. The next day, when Sarek called his friends to school, they found Lunar still upset about not having fun like everyone else. Her father's attempts to follow online advice resulted in him looking strange and scaring her. He even showed up in the classroom, surprising everyone. The class teacher arrived to find his old rival in a bizarre get-up, which made him furious. Instead of fighting, they ended up talking about their outfits. Lunar's father's vivid imagination influenced Sun's father. They both admitted they didn't understand their daughter's feelings. Ever since Sun married Nagasumi, her father had been unable to grasp her thoughts. Lunar's father, being a good friend, gave Sun's father a video game to help improve the situation. Meanwhile, Fujishiro the shark felt annoyed with his boss's situation. Being a gangster had been enjoyable, but suddenly being forced into teaching was unbearable. Just then, the boss entered and surprised the two close brothers by inviting them to play a game. As gangsters, they had no clue about the game. Having exhausted other ways to understand their daughters, the next day they decided to role-play as characters from the game. Masa took on the role of Nagasumi's sister, and Nagasumi himself was disappointed to see his admired brother become even more comedic. Glancing out the window, he even spotted Lunar's father next door. Sun noticed something was wrong and wanted to stay home, but Lunar insisted they go to school. Still reeling from embarrassment the day before, Lunar felt it was now her friend's turn to face it. As expected, when they arrived at school, the once great father had transformed into a figure that shattered their image of him into pieces. Both daughters were left speechless and in tears, unable to bear it any longer. The younger brothers wanted to leave behind their gang loyalty and start fresh. Sun and Lunar chastised their fathers for their foolish behavior that hurt others. Even their mother intervened, lecturing them on their role as fathers and how they had let their daughters down. Realizing their mistake, the two fathers apologized to their daughters for disappointing them. The scene then shifts to the home of the class president. At that moment, he was writing a love letter to her crush. The next day, Nagasumi found the letter in his locker and panicked, hiding it quickly so Sun wouldn't see. Finding a quiet corner, he read it and was thrilled to find a meeting place written inside, making him happy as it was his first love letter from a girl. From then on, Nagasumi was joyful and determined to keep it secret, enjoying the feeling without any intention to betray anyone. However, Maki discovered the letter and exposed him, questioning what he was hiding, but he didn't admit to it. Furious, Lunar knocked him out with a punch and opened the letter, revealing it to the entire class, causing them to ostracize him. Unfazed, Sun knew she had a rival and returned the letter to Nagasumi, urging him to meet the sender that afternoon. Lunar invited her friend to hide in the bushes to find out who the rival was, drawing the interest of a group. Sun was ready to leave, trusting her husband completely, but they couldn't because the sender hadn't shown up yet, making Nagasumi anxious. Instead, Lunar and Sun's fathers appeared, admitting they had sent the letter to test Nagasumi's loyalty, suspecting his flirtatious nature. They had planned for their underlings to intervene. Luckily, Sun intervened, unwilling to let her husband be deceived. The bosses attempted to confront him physically, but Nagasumi evaded them all, his survival instincts honed from threats of assassination allowing him to remain unfazed by the older men. Sun's mother intervened to stop the altercation, ending the conflict. Immediately, the two fathers were escorted away. Sun continued to trust him, while the class president, who witnessed everything, realized her mistake in doubting her husband's loyalty. She sought advice from her mother-in-law, who had created a magical potion that promised instant fame for a day, sounding like something from a futuristic gadget in a sci-fi tale. After drinking the potion, Sun's mother-in-law began to admire her son-in-law even more, which delighted him but also made him uneasy. Meanwhile, back at school, the potion continued to have an effect, making Nagasumi exceptionally appealing to all the women around him. However, this sudden popularity became problematic among his male peers, leading to a confrontation with his father-in-law who was irritated by Nagasumi's allure. This altercation escalated, drawing the attention of everyone in class. Fortunately, the women intervened, protecting Nagasumi from harm. Despite their efforts, the situation became untenable, prompting Nagasumi to retreat home. Even his own mother fell under the potion's influence, leaving him feeling overwhelmed. Seeking refuge, he locked himself in the bathroom, only to find Maki already inside, who had also succumbed to an infatuation with him. As the day progressed, the complications grew, with a group of girls arriving to further complicate matters. Life took a complicated turn for Nagasumi, especially when he ventured outside and encountered his father, who administered a stern reprimand, leaving him feeling utterly defeated. The following day, Nagasumi, wearing a puzzled expression, found another love letter waiting for him at school. Having learned from the previous day's events, he decided to avoid meeting anyone. However, this letter was actually from the class president, who had changed her appearance by removing her glasses and letting down her hair to look different than usual. Intrigued, Nagasumi and his father-in-law secretly observed what would happen next. Just as Sun arrived, the class president confessed her feelings, mistaking Nagasumi for someone else due to her poor eyesight. Sun, experiencing her first confession, kindly declined due to various practical reasons. Embarrassed by the situation, the class president wished she could disappear. Several days later, Lunar asked Sun to play the role of her boyfriend for an upcoming movie rehearsal. This seemed straightforward until Sun realized her character's boyfriend was supposed to be a tough gangster. Reluctantly, Sun got into character, which left Nagasumi feeling disheartened. This role proved challenging for Sun. Upon arriving at school, Lunar asked if any boys were willing to pretend to be her boyfriend. Everyone except Kai eagerly volunteered, causing a split in the class. Thankfully, the tension eased when Sun appeared in character, captivating everyone present. Seeing his typically refined daughter transformed into a rough character saddened Sun's father deeply. The matter was temporarily put aside to avoid negative impacts on Sun. Additionally, Lunar's character needed to learn ventriloquism but struggled with it. Reluctantly, she turned to Maki for help. Initially reluctant, Maki eventually agreed after Lunar appealed to her as a close friend. The next day, Maki creatively used a puppet to assist with ventriloquism, impressing everyone by making it seem like the puppet was speaking while whistling from its stomach. However, they soon clashed due to their differences. Maki couldn't tolerate Lunar's attitude, and Lunar was upset by the uncomfortable truths being aired. Their argument escalated until Sun intervened to defuse the situation. But Akino caught wind of the altercation. It was already known that Maki was barred from school, but they clarified that Lunar wanted Maki to join her in a performance. This was crucial because being caught live on air required serious explanations. Despite the tension, Lunar insisted on participating in the show to avoid expulsion by the third period. She briefly considered fleeing, but Kai reminded her of her contractual obligations with Akino. Nagasumi also attempted to persuade her, but Lunar remained resolute. Maki pledged her full support and swiftly organized their escape. Sun also lent a hand, confronting Akino directly. When Maki saw Lunar under attack, she intervened, pulling Lunar away. However, Lunar sustained injuries that prevented her from performing. Following a sword duel with Sun, Akino reflected on recent events and sought out Mr. Masa for insights. It emerged that Masa had been taught swordsmanship by Akino's family lineage, a skill she herself struggled to master. She inquired where Masa had learned it, but unfortunately, he had lost his memory prior to joining the gang. Akino raised the possibility that her brother, who was supposed to evaluate the Seto gang, went missing during that period. This led her to suspect he might have taught Masa swordsmanship. Sun's father overheard this and grew deeply concerned, but Masa couldn't recall any further details. Soon after, Sun's father abducted Nagasumi to separate him from the group. He explained that when Akino's brother had investigated, he was offered a drink. They discussed Sun's future, but excessive drinking caused him to lose control and be punched, resulting in memory loss ever since. As a result, Akino's brother turned out to be the present-day Masa, keeping his identity as an examiner a closely guarded secret. When this revelation came to light, the young man decided to assist his father-in-law in keeping the secret. Witnessing them attempt to use the sword to trigger memories, he intervened and confiscated it. This led to Akino delivering a heavy punch to Nagasumi. Despite this, Nagasumi persisted in trying to distract Masa with other matters. Seeing the situation escalate, the boss also threw punches in an attempt to make everyone forget everything. Strangely, these punches inadvertently helped Masa regain consciousness. However, in the scuffle, Akino was knocked down and hit her head, causing her to lose her memory and revert to her state from 10 years ago. Inside Masa's chaotic memories, there was a desire to return to his kind brother's memories. But Masa declined, choosing to continue his current life. They were now two individuals but united as one, leaving no room for regrets. Akino fell again and also recovered, temporarily restoring everything to normal. At the end of the day, the three men discussed how Masa had regained his memories but opted to maintain his current life out of love for his boss and family. The scene shifts to the examiner's workplace, revealing that the plot to separate Sun from Nagasumi was orchestrated by the boss, who had developed feelings for Sun. Seeing his subordinates, especially Akino, fail in their attempts, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Back at the couple's home, a situation had developed where Nagasumi was engrossed in watching movies, oblivious to his wife managing all the household chores alone. Frustrated, she turned off the TV, but Nagasumi promptly turned it back on to continue watching. Seeing Lunar being interviewed on TV, Nagasumi enjoyed it, which made Sun feel jealous. When she brought up their marriage, Nagasumi insensitively mentioned it was arranged, leading to a heated argument between them. Sensing an opportunity, their classmates fantasized about being with their crushes after a potential breakup. Meanwhile, Akino delivered an invitation from higher-ups to Sun's family. Knowing the host, Yashiyuo, was a notorious womanizer and disliked by the boss, they reluctantly agreed to attend. Naive Sun accepted the invitation, causing concern for her mother about potential trouble. That evening, still angry, Sun didn't inform her husband about the event. The next morning, Nagasumi discovered that the entire gang had gone somewhere for a meeting, which suddenly made him anxious. Meanwhile, Kai sensed something amiss and questioned Akino, who remained silent. With information from his family, Kai knew major gangs were gathering, and upon learning Yashiyuo was hosting, Lunar intervened, denouncing him as a debaucher. They were particularly concerned that Sun would be targeted at this party. Akino anticipated a rescue attempt and didn't stop them. Meanwhile, Nagasumi, missing his wife after a day, realized his mistake. Sun's family arrived at the venue and was greeted by Yashiyuo, who showed particular interest in Sun. When they realized the problem, everyone had already been drugged and rendered unconscious. Nagasumi, determined to find his wife, was assisted by Lunar and Kai, but they were ambushed and routed due to the enemy having superior information. Sun's family was separated and unable to act. Akino returned to her duties in protection, frustrated by the debauchery of the hosts. He wielded authority here, and Akino had no chance against his noble family's influence. Crossing the sea, Kai's group reached their destination and stormed into their castle. However, facing a multitude of enemies below, Nagasumi felt a shudder of fear. Fortunately, there were enough soldiers above to provide some support. Lunar used her singing to manipulate the enemies, aiding Nagasumi in his search for his wife. Bursting into the place where the wealthy playboys gathered, Yashiyuo recognized Nagasumi as the one following Sun. Without wasting words, he sent a signal to confront him, surprising Nagasumi, who realized his supposed friend had betrayed him long ago. She urged Nagasumi to abandon Sun and surrender, but he adamantly refused. Nagasumi would rather face death than betray his pure and innocent wife. He accused Akino of being too weak to defy this villain, prompting her to realize the truth. As she contemplated rebellion, Yashio summoned a beast to attack. Luckily, at the crucial moment, Sun's father arrived and rescued his son-in-law. Upon witnessing this, Yashiyuo commanded his thousands of subordinates to engage them, but Maki arrived just in time to help fend them off. She couldn't help but admire Nagasumi's bravery for daring to come there. His brothers-in-law also arrived to support him. Sun's mother stayed behind to care for Akino, urging Nagasumi to continue searching for their daughter. The battle intensified as Lunar summoned her father for aid with his extraordinary strength, clearing enemies around them. At that moment, Yashiyuo approached Sun, but Nagasumi caught up, sparking a battle between the two men. Nagasumi was clearly outmatched in strength. Sun remained unconscious due to the mermaid's scent, which affects humans minimally, allowing Nagasumi to remain standing. He delivered a powerful punch to Yashiyuo, but as a merman, it had no effect. Unable to rely solely on physical strength, Nagasumi used his words to awaken his wife. Upon hearing her ring fall, Sun suddenly woke up, realizing Nagasumi had risked everything for her. Determined, she fought fiercely. Yashiyuo then pulled out a gun and aimed at Sun. Nagasumi shielded her. Empowered by his wife's strength, he transformed into a dragon, causing everything to tremble. The immense power of their love destroyed everything in its path. The bullet aimed at Sun was deflected back, terrifying Yashiyuo until he turned pale. It was too late for regrets, and he received a beating from the couple for using his power to harass a decent woman. As a result, Nagasumi transformed him back into his original form, a fat catfish. After this incident, Akino's superiors decided to report Yashiyuo's actions to higher authorities, having tolerated him for too long. Returning to the couple, seizing the moment with a wedding dress and ring in hand, Nagasumi proposed to Sun, deeply realizing his love for her with every word spoken. That's it for today's watch the following video, and I will see you in the next one.